This conference will now be recorded.
So I was talking about the methods, right? So I'm going to create one sample class, and that class is going to tell about the methods demo. So we can work on it. So a new class for method demo alone I'm creating now. So inside this, I'm going to do regular things only. Like I'll be starting one main method. I'll be writing one main method here. So inside the main method, I'll be having one print statement. So this is the simple print statement. And if you look at my screen, this println is a method. When I mouse over on this, you can see it is a method, and the definition of the method is there, and the purpose of the method is also clearly mentioned here. So if you want to know what it is actually doing, is mouse over against this and click on the enter button, and now it will show what is this println is supposed to do. It is going to give me a new line, but if I have an argument inside that, it is going to perform a different operations. So this I will cover in the polymorphism phases, that is same method name with different purpose and all. For now, let's see what is method. So method is nothing but if I want to perform a task, I'm going to combine all the tasks in this particular name, so that it's easy for me to call. So for example, I'm writing one method here. So like I'm going to calculate the volume of a box. So method means it should have a name like this, so that I have to call it. And you will have this bracket. I'll tell you the purpose of the bracket in few minutes. So you will have a curly braces open. So within this only, this is the scope of the method. Between this method, whatever I'm writing, that is going to perform a task. So we know the formula for volume is nothing but length multiplied, like length into breadth into height. So this is the formula. So once I perform this operation, somewhere I have to save it. So for that, I'm going to create one variable called volume. So usually this is how you perform the task, like int volume equal to length into breadth into height. But I nowhere specify what is length, what is breadth, and what is height, right? That's why I'm getting error. So usually I get this data as the input from this method. So I have to specify that if I get an input in this method, so this is the area where I have to pass the input. If I have a method called volume, and if the method as an input, if somebody is calling, usually method means what? Somebody is going to use it. So here the println, somebody has already written it. So I'm calling here, right, in my void main method. Similarly, somebody is going to call. When they call, they are going to pass some values. Okay, here even in the println, I used to type something like this, right? Hi, hello, how are you? So this is the input I'm giving. Similarly, whoever wants to call this volume method, they have to pass the length, breadth, and height to me, so that this method will perform the mathematical operation and it will provide the volume of the box. And I'm just saying length, breadth, and height. I have to say the data type also. If it is a string, if it is a character, if it is a int, I have to specify here int length, int breadth, int height. So now all my errors are gone. So I'm performing a task, and that task is going to give me a volume. Somebody is going to call. So obviously, if I'm asking you a question to you, you have to answer me back. So you have the answer means I'm going to ask you. So reply is needed. Somebody has to return something for my question. Similarly, I have calculated the volume, I have to return the volume to somewhere. Like whoever is calling the volume method, I have to give them back the actual volume of the box. So what I have to do here is return the volume. If I say return the volume means it will send the data, whatever the data I have calculated, it will be sent back. So I'm saying return, right? Return whatever I'm doing, that should be mentioned here. If I am passing an integer here, the int should be returned. If I am passing a string here, the return type of the method. So what is the actual uh, purpose of this method will be understand by this return type. The purpose of the method is to return a integer, means I have to say this return type. So this is the key, the actual technical word is return type. So the return type of this method is integer. So whoever is going to call this volume method with these three inputs, they are going to get the volume of the box calculated and it will be sent back to them. So how to call, this is the definition. So whatever code I have written, right, this we call it as method definition. So the method is ready to calculate the volume, but somebody has to utilize it, right? How to utilize here is you have to call this method something like this: int volume, or I can say like this also, volume, and I have to pass the values like 8, 9, 10. Okay, so if I pass the volume like this, so here I'm passing the length equal to 8, breadth equal to 9. So I didn't specify anything called length, breadth and height. I just typed 8, 9, 10. Automatically it is taking. How it is automatically taking? Because the volume method definition is it is looking for something called length and breadth and height. That's why the ID is automatically saying that length equal to 8, breadth equal to 9 and height equal to 10. And it is returning me a volume. So once it is returned, somewhere I have to catch the data. Somebody is throwing a ball, means we have to catch it, right? Similarly here it is returning a volume. So I have to catch the data here. So I'm creating a variable called box volume and I'm calling this. Okay, so one thing I can do this non-static method. Okay, fine. The static and non-static I will explain. For now, without an object, usually this Java means it's a hoops concept, right? So using an object, you have to play around. But here, I didn't create an object, but still I'm planning to call a method. That's why it's throwing me an error. If you are planning to call it, then you have to use the way which I'm showing. But anyhow, static I'll be explaining in detail what is static, when can I go for static and all. I'll be explaining in detail later. Okay, for now there is a method called volume and I'm passing three inputs, and whenever I call, it will go to the actual definition where the method definition is there and it will perform the task. What is the task it's doing? It's calculating the volume. Once the volume is calculated, it is returned back to me. So return back means here it will be saved and I'm going to print the value here. The volume of the box is, okay. So now I'm going to run this code. My code is compiling at the bottom. If you see, my volume is calculated. How it is calculated? I want to calculate the volume of the box. That is the task assigned to me. Instead of writing this logic here inside the main method itself, I'm creating outside, so that the main purpose of method creation is reusability. Today I want the volume calculation inside the main method, so I may write this code inside this main method itself. Tomorrow if somebody else, some other class, some other method wants to use it, means again I don't need to duplicate this code. Instead of that, I can call the readily available method. Just by passing the length, breadth and height, I can get the volume calculated and it will be returned to me. I don't need to duplicate my code. So the main advantage of method creation is reusability. Okay, so is there any doubt in this so far? Okay,
Yeah,
so
just one question. So once
yes,
we are declaring a method in one class, so this can be reused in other places also. We don't. That's what you're saying, right?
yes, yes, it's there is a concept called inheritance.
Okay,
So
okay, got
if,
it.
okay, so you have to inherit it, and or you can create the object. Different
Yeah,
ways is
okay,
are there. We will
yeah,
cover one after the other.
yeah.
Easy way
Thank
is to create the object for the class, and you can call in the method. One main thing is the access modifier. I'll cover that also. If you have a proper access, like if it is publicly accessible and all, no challenge. If it is private and protected, we have to take the appropriate steps. I'll be covering those steps also. Okay, when I cover that particular inheritance topic. Shall we move on? Any other doubt? Okay. So here length, breadth and height, this we call it as the arguments. So this we call it as arguments. Arguments is nothing but the inputs you are passing, and the technical term is I'm doing the passing the arguments. I'm passing arguments here, and this is the method call. I'm calling this method. So passing the argument and method call. These are the technical terms you can come across when you get into a project. So don't get confused. This is simple thing. Somebody is going to call this, and the method is already available. To call this method, I need the arguments. Arguments is nothing but the inputs. Thing here is the number of arguments should match. Here I have three inputs. Here I have three inputs. If the method definition is expecting three inputs, and if I pass two inputs, means it won't accept. Okay. So the argument, the number of arguments should match, and data type also should match. If I am passing, see for example here, if I pass something like this in length, I'm passing high. It is saying that a record type is integer, but I'm passing a string. So the data type should match. I should not pass a mismatched data here. So these are the condition though. First thing is the number of arguments should match. Second thing is the data type should match. Okay, and the name should match. So here Java is an object oriented program, right? When you're calling a method without an object. So here what I have done, I didn't create an object at all, but still I'm creating, anyhow it is within the class itself. So I don't need to create an object here, but still I'm not able to do because this is a static method. So two things in this, two logics are hidden. First of all, if I want to call a method from a different class, I have to create an object and I have to call it. But in this class, you can ask me, this is same class, right? Why I need an object? Without object also I can call it, right? Yes, you can call without an object. But the challenge here is this is a static method. Okay, so previously I specified it without the static keyword. I just specified as into volume, right? So it was telling that from a static method, you cannot call a non-static method. So it was not allowing me at all. After I changed this method also a static, it allowed me. Okay, this combination I will cover in detail, like from static method to a non-static method, from a non-static method to a static method, what is the use of a static keyword and all. I'll be covering in a separate topic in detail. For now, if you want to run a demo like this, like if I'm giving an answer on, this is how you have to do without a object. If you are planning to do, this is the way we have to do. Okay, we can have a return statement. So here what I did, I was returning the value here and I printing here. Either you can do like this, or if my task is just to print the volume of the particular box, I don't want to really do some business logic. Usually why we return it is after I get the volume here, I do some additional operation in the main method, like in the volume. Based upon the volume, I will do some calculation and say that this is a big box, this is a small box, shorter, longer, something. If I'm planning to do means, yes, it is meaningful to return the volume and catch the volume here and do the logic. If my requirement itself is to just to print the volume, you don't need to really do any business logic, means this particular line is not at all needed. Okay, so instead of this, what I can do here is I can just have the call statement like this. Okay, and here I don't need to return anything. I can just static also I don't need. I can just have one print statement here, and I can print the volume here. Okay, so this print statement I can put it here directly. The volume of the box is here itself. I can put. So here, if you look at this, previously I told as I am returning an integer, I put int, and I used it here and it worked fine. But now I'm not returning anything, right? For that also I have to specify the return type. What I have to do here is I have to specify something called void. If I specified void, it's the instruction to the execution that this method is not going to return anything. You have to just call the method and you can do it also. So here again it is saying that I'm calling, right? So it is saying that you have to call a static method from a static method. So main is a static method. This is a static method. From this I can call a static method. So this is how you are going to do. So I'm not going to return anything. I've commented the return statement and I remove the int also. I'm not doing any business logic in the main method. That's why I'm saying just the printing, right? Why I should unnecessarily return, because when I return, obviously I have to create a local variable here, so extra memory and other things. So now the same output I'm getting. The only difference is previously I was returning an integer output. Now I'm not returning. Even though you're not returning, you have to specify the return type for the method. So that is the definition of the method. It should start with the return type of the method, name of the method, the arguments. You can either call it as an arguments, you can either call it as a inputs. Okay, so whatever inputs you are expecting, you have to specify, and the method should start with the curly braces and ends with the curly braces. And if you are returning something, then the method should end with the return keyword, return integer, whatever you are returning, that you have to return it. Okay, so this is the method one. Main method is always called. If you look at this, the main method is always executed first, because the JVM is designed in such a way that it will call the main method. It will start the execution from the main method only. From the main method, whatever methods you are calling, that you can execute and you can run it. But the first execution will be kickstarted from your static void main method only. You can have, like, it's not like always I should have a method with an argument. You can have a method without an argument also. Okay, for example, I am planning to print something. Okay, I'm not planning to add any business logic here, just some print statement I want to do, even some dashes or something I want to print. So for this, print a new line, print a start something, I don't want any input at all. Okay, so it is not going to return anything, some dashes alone I want to see it in my console. And I want to use a static keyword because I'm going to call this method from the main method. So static keyword I've added. Now if you look at this print line, I'm going to call from this main method, and I'm not going to pass any input at all, because if I'm going to do any business logic inside this method, then only I need a input. Based upon the input, if I'm going to perform a task, yes, it is good to have the inputs. In this case, I'm not going to get any inputs because I'm planning to print something called a new line or extra spaces, something I'm planning to do. So in this case, I don't need a argument at all. So this particular method is also executable. If you see, I am running something and I'm getting some dashes or lines or something in my screen. So without an argument also, method definition is possible. Okay. Now this is something called a method separately. So now we are getting into our, like, going back to our previous demo, that is yesterday's demo, where I was showing a class called box, and there I was doing some operations, right? I'm taking you back there. Now we are getting into the actual hoops concept methods. So what are the volume I have told, right? The previous method demo. Here also I'm going to use the same method. I'm going to have a method called volume, and here what I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate the length and breadth. So volume I'm going to calculate, so obviously the same formula I'm going to use, LBH. In maths we used to say, right, LBH, that's it. So now the volume is there, and this volume method I'm not passing any argument at all, okay, but still I am returning. So return type alone specifying here. You can ask me some question, but let me comment all this code. For now I'm commenting this. I have a this is yesterday's example only, nothing new. Yesterday I was creating 3 variables, right? These are all called instance variable, and I was showing you how to create an object like red box object, yellow, how to set the value. Same thing. So 2 classes I was creating. One is your box class, and another one is your demo class. Inside the demo class only I have the main method. Inside the main method only I was creating the objects for the box classes. Simple thing only I was explaining yesterday. The same file I have, nothing new I've added. The same file I'm continuing today also. Today I just added one more method called volume inside the class called box, and I'm going to reuse the yesterday's object only. Red box object I've already created, right? So here for the red box, I'm going to assign some length, breadth, and height. 3 things I'm going to assign. Length equal to something, breadth equal to something, height equal to something. Some data I'm planning to add here. This yesterday we have seen it, so I'm not explaining that again. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. We can discuss on that. So I've said 3 datas now. Now I'm going to call the method. Okay. So volume. Yesterday I was showing you something like this, right? When I say red box dot, it was showing length, breadth, and height. Now I'm getting a method called volume also, because this volume method is part of the box class. For the box class, I've created a object here, that is an instance I've created. So going forward, whenever I type this red box will have all these 3 instance variable. Along with that, you can see the volume method also. So now I'm going to call this. This is called method invoking. I'm invoking the method called volume, and I am running this code now. My volume is calculated, but there are 2 things you have to observe here. First of all, if you look at this method definition of this and method definition of this volume, here I was passing the length, breadth, and height, right? But in the class demo, I didn't specify anything. Just I specify the name called volume. I didn't give any input at all. Okay. Second thing is, when I call a method, when I call this volume method in the method demo, that is in a single class itself, I was showing a demo, right, just few minutes back. There I was passing an argument called length, breadth, and height. But in this class, okay, in this object, I was creating an object, right? There are 2 things. Using static, I've shown one thing. This is using the objects, the instance. When I call using an object, I didn't pass any argument at all. Why it is like this? The answer is very simple. Even yesterday I was telling the same thing. Whenever I create an object in the memory, three instance variable will be created for the red box: length, breadth, and height, and the default value of 0 will be assigned. The same thing I told yesterday, but I'm repeating again. Once I assign the value like length equal to 10, breadth equal to 15, height equal to 20, this value will be replaced. Initially it was 0, right? Because the data type was int, so it was initialized with 0. Whenever I assign a value here called 10, 15, and 20, it will replace the 0 with the actual value. So when I call this volume method using the red box object, it will go to the memory and it will get automatically. I don't need to specifically tell that this is the length, this is the breadth, this is the height, because it is already set in the memory. It is going to call that variable only, because here the length and breadth and height, whatever I'm specifying, right, it is corresponds to this length, breadth, and height. So you can very well see when I double click on this length, can you see this length is highlighted? You can see the change in the color. When I mouse over on this, you can see this breadth is highlighted. Similarly for this height also, you can see when I did this height is, so this length and this length are same, which is nothing but in memory already the instance variable are created, right? That variable has the value, so I don't need to really pass this argument here. I don't need to really pass the inputs when I call the instance method. Okay, any doubt in this, the way of calling, the difference between calling using an object, calling using a method? Any doubt, please let me know. No doubt? Okay,
Yeah, no
fine.
doubts.
Thank you for the confirmation, Sri. Next thing is, if I want to set, so far what I did is I have hard coded this length, breadth, and height, right? This is not the correct approach. Usually we have to do everything using the method. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a method inside the class called box, and I'm going to call it as set dimension, and here I am passing the arguments. Why I am passing the arguments, I will explain in short. So I'm getting three inputs, and I'm not going to return anything. If somebody is going to call this method using this length, breadth, and height, this length, this breadth, this height, I'm going to set here. Okay, which object is going to call? It is not like for the box class I'm assigning on the red box object. So for red box object, in memory already three variables is there, right? For that three variable, I'm going to assign this length, breadth, and height. So I'm not going to return anything to the called person. So I'm specifying a void here. Inside this, I'm going to say this. Going forward, this length would be equal to this length. Okay. Whatever input I'm getting, right, that input will be assigned to my instance variable. Similarly for the breadth also, breadth equal to b. So the input b is nothing but the input I received from the user, and height equal to h. So I am doing the assignment here. I am not doing like this anymore. So what I am going to do, I am going to comment this. This is not the correct approach. As you are in the beginning stage, I was showing this. Usually in your regular projects, in the real-time projects, we used to call a method and we used to set it. How to call a method? Simple. Red box dot. If I say dot, now you can see three instance variables are there, and the set dimension is there, and it is saying that you have to pass the argument. You can ask me, you just now you say that you don't need to really pass the argument because it is the instance method, right? Yes. The requirement here is if somebody is calling with the argument, somebody is passing this input, I have to set this input. Okay. But here in the previous volume call, already I have said that. Already I have said like this. So I was just calling it. So now I'm going to call the method called set dimension. Same thing, 10, 15, 25. I'm going to pass it here. Okay, my volume is set. And one more thing you would have observed, I'm going back to the previous code. Okay, let me run this. Here it is printing the volume. Though I didn't set any code at all, I didn't set any length, breadth and height, but still my volume is calculated. How it is calculated? The same logic. If you don't set any value, the default value will be available. For length, breadth and height, the default value is 0. That value is taken into count. Okay, that's why this is returning a 0. Length is 0, breadth is 0, height is 0. That's why the volume is also 0. So you should be very careful when you are setting the value. If you don't set a value, you just created one instance variable for the integer data type, means your answer may end up wrongly because it is going to consider the default value. Okay, like this. If I set only length, okay, and I'm running, my answer is 0. Why it is 0 here is I have set only length, breadth and height would be default value only. I didn't set anything, right? So length, breadth into height, that's the multiplication we are doing. 10 multiplied with 0, your answer is 0. Okay, that is what is happening. So you should be very cautious when you are dealing with this instance variable. Now let's go back to that set dimension. So red box dot set dimension. I'm setting this value 10 comma 15 comma 20. Okay, so done. Now I'm running this. You can see I've set 10, 15 and 20. I didn't use this way. I'm running my code. Even now my volume would be calculated because when I say set dimension, where it is going and setting for the red box object, it is setting the value like LBH, what are the arguments I'm sending, right? That is set and I'm using it. So there is no difference in the output which I have received. Okay, this is a method I was telling, but there is a technical activity we will do that also we'll discuss. Usually, when you want to uh, assign something, okay, we have to, it is always good practice to assign the value of instance variable. These are the instance variable, right? Using a method in box class, we may do some validation. Okay, if you are planning to do some validation, that is int the L is not equal to 0, breadth is not equal to 0, some validation if you want to do before actually assign this value, it is good practice to go with the set dimension instead of hard coding something like this. Okay, it's easy way to set the value of instance variable is to create a method with the name of the class. Usually they won't do like this. They won't give us separate name to the set dimension. What they will do is they will have the same name instead of the set dimensions. What they will do is they will have a method name called box and they will follow the same thing. Nothing new. Same thing they are going to do, but the method name alone they are going to use something called box. What is this? Let's see. If you look at this, I didn't specify the return type here, but still it is not giving error. And this box is nothing but the name of the class. Okay, so now you can understand this method is not the regular method, it's a special method. What is special here is the method which I created now is nothing but the constructor. Okay, the constructor is used to assign the value, that is to initialize your instance variable. and the constructor will have the name. This is a method only, but it's a special method because the name of the constructor will match with the name of your class. So both the constructor and the name of your class should be same. When you define like this, when you name a method with the name of a class, you don't need to really specify the return type because it is not going to return anything. The main idea of this constructor is to assign the value. It is not going to perform any other task apart from the assigning the value. Okay, that's why this constructor is not expecting me to specify a return type. Unlike the regular methods where it is asking me, even if I'm not returning anything, what happened in the previous demo when I showed, it is forcing me to give a void declaration. Without void declaration, it was saying that you didn't specify the actual return type, some errors and all it was showing, right? But in this particular method, this special method, immediately after I specify the name of the method as box. What is this box? This is the name of the class which I'm currently working on. When this name matches, it's saying that no error, and it's not expecting me the return type also. And one important thing, if you look at this editor, it used to give some usages and all. Okay, 3 times it is used, 2 times it is used. So it is nothing but where it is called. If you look at this volume method, it is saying one usage because in my demo class, I'm calling this volume method. So one time it is used. And similarly, the set dimension also, it is saying one usage because in the demo class I was calling this. Okay, but if you look at this new constructor which I have created, this is also showing one usage. How come it is showing one usages? Whenever you are creating an object like this, okay, it will automatically call the constructor. You don't need to really call a method. Like here, a method you're calling explicitly, right? You're calling with an object, you're calling with a static keyword, whatever maybe you're calling, you're writing a code for it. But in the case of constructor, I don't need to really call it explicitly. When I create an object, at the time of object creation, the box method, the special method, which is nothing but the constructor, will be called implicitly. It will call automatically. I don't need to really call it. So what I'm going to do now here is I'm going to comment this method, the set dimension method, where I was manually calling a method to set the instance variable. Going forward, I'm going to use a logic call constructor. So here I'm going to pass the argument because constructor itself a method only, right? So it is expecting me to pass the argument. Once I pass the argument, the errors are all gone. It is saying one usage, right? If in case, if I'm creating one more object here, okay, box, yellow box equal to new, so something like this. I'm creating one more object here. You can see the usage has become 2. So whenever you are creating an object, this constructor will be called. No matter whether you are calling or not, it will automatically call. There won't be any return type for this method definition. We can give, like, it's not like you don't need to have a separate method to set your dimension. You can very well keep the dimension because I have a box called red box. It has a dimension called 10, 15 and 20. Somehow I squeezed it, somehow I damaged that box. So the size has changed now. So I want to change the size, means that time I cannot call the constructor because constructor will be called at the time of object creation only. So once the object is created, later on in mid of your program execution, if you are really in need of changing the object, really in need of changing the dimension, means that time you can go for a method called set dimension. In the initial phases, if you want to initialize the instance variable, that time you can go for the constructor. So you have to understand the difference between the regular method, a normal method which is designed to set the dimension, and constructor which is designed to initialize the instance variable. The main difference is constructor will be called at the time of object creation only once you are calling. Later on, if you want to change the dimension, you can very well call this set dimension with a new dimension. You can change the dimensions like this. Okay, length is 15 and breadth is something, because I've squeezed it, right? So I'm reducing that length, breadth, and height something. We will call this method, no problem at all. But if you are creating a method just to initialize a instance variable, then it's not needed. Okay, you should know the difference between these two. Okay, constructor is a special method, and it has a name matching with your class, immediately called when our object is created, and used for initializing the value, and no return type is needed. So this is the actual definition of a constructor. So whenever somebody asks you an interview question, what is constructor, don't go with the theoretical explanation, because many people get confused with the theoretical explanation. Theoretical explanation will be little bit confusing, but if you see the actual thing, you can easily say it is a method only, but it is a special method. And secondly, it has a name same as your class. And one important thing is, I can have n number of constructor. It doesn't mean that I can have only one constructor. I'll be explaining that also, with the same box, like the name of the method box, right? I can create n number of constructor, that is one constructor with argument like this. Okay, box int I blah blah blah. Another constructor without an argument, if I want, I can create. Okay, if I want to create a constructor with one, okay, one argument like this. Okay, say for example, I have a cube. Okay, the box is not a cuboid. Cube means, you know, right? All the things are equal. Your length is equal, your breadth is equal, your height is equal. Okay, so in the length, breadth, and height, instead of getting 3 arguments, I may get only one thing. Okay, only length. If I get, still I can assign the length, breadth, and height, because everything is same, right? So instead of passing like length equal to 5, breadth equal to 5, height equal to 5, what I can do, I can get only one input. That input I can set it here. Length equal to L, breadth equal to L, anything you can say, not even L. L will be a little bit confusing. Something called size. Okay, I'm getting something called size. So the same size I can assign here. My length, breadth, size, or side, something, some variable. So I can have different constructor, because it's not like all the shapes are going to be same. Red box is in cuboid shape, that is in a rectangle shape, and this yellow box is in square shape. Okay, the cube shape. In that cases, all the dimensions are going to be same. So what I'm going to do here is, I'm going to create an object called yellow box, but in this yellow box I'm going to pass only one argument. Still my code will work, because can you see now it is saying one usage, because this yellow box is going to use this constructor. And let's go back to the old constructor. This is the old constructor I created, right? It is showing one usage. Previously, when I passed 3 arguments for the yellow box, it was showing 2 usage, because that time the yellow box is using this constructor. But now I'm changing the argument, I'm changing the input for this particular object creation. Okay, I said only one argument, I'm passing only one argument. So it is not going to my old constructor, it is going to my new constructor, where only one argument is there. So this is the intelligence of this code. I have the same method. Box is the same method, and you can see here no argument, here single argument is there, and here 3 argument is there. Based upon the input which I am passing, no matter, it is go and fit into the actual method. It is not waiting for me to say that, hey, red box, you have to go to a method called 3 arguments, because it in turns identified that it has the intelligence, and it is doing automatically, and it is not expecting me to do it. Okay, so this is called the overloading concept. So you have 3 methods here, and the 3 methods have the same name with different arguments. One method has no argument, One method has 3 arguments, another method has 1 argument, but still my code is executed properly. It is calling the actual method without any confusion at all. Okay, so this is called overloading concept. As I'm doing this overloading on a constructor, this is called constructor overloading. Okay, if I do the similar task for a method, it is called method overloading. Method overloading is nothing but if I have the same method, that's what I've shown in this example also, right? If you open this println, this actual method definition in the print stream, there are so many methods with the println, right? You can see a method here where the string is expected. You can see a similar method here where a character is expected as the input, and you can see one more method called println. The method name is same, only the input is different. Either the number of arguments might be different or the data type of the argument. The example which I'm showing now here is the data type is different. One is double and the other data type is string, and this is character. The input is only one argument but the data type is different. Whenever we come across such cases where the method name is same, there is some difference in the argument. Either the number of arguments is different or the type of the argument is different. This we call it as method overloading. When you are doing a similar thing on a constructor, this is called constructor overloading. Is this clear? Any doubt in this?
Yes, yeah, just one general question, UV. So inside the constructor, can we do data validation?
I'll cover it in the next demo.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
cover that with an example for you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
because it will be good if I explain with an example. Already time is up because I'll cover it in the next session with an example for
Yeah.
you. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other doubt?
I have few dots, Jimmy, but I'll ask in next class because I need to go to this recording.
Sure, Ranjit, we
Yeah,
can do it. Yeah, because constructor we are partially done. Still some more things needs to be covered. Copy constructor and other things. I think if I cover that part also, most of your doubts will be cleared. Okay.
sure.
Yeah.